All right, guys, today we got Rich Guido. He just is off of his sick week. It's, third time you're doing it. You just got second place in stick shift right behind Chad Fegley.
Yep.
And with a personal best of, 850?
851, and I'm 850 cage limited, so don't get me wrong. I was trying to go below that on the last day, but it didn't quite happen. But
they're pretty particular.
Yes.
They are. John Sears is on it when you're there.
Yeah.
He's not going to let you sneak by.
Yeah. Nope. Can't hand in anything faster than that either. And actually, Kevin Smith and I were in staging together, and both of us were talking, we're going to go out, make a pass we can hand in, and then see if we can go a little quicker. Yeah. Kevin had a little worse day than me, but and if you haven't seen it, it's all over. Every time I open up my Facebook, there's a new video.
I saw 1,700 shares. He made a pass with Chad. He was alongside Chad, who was number one stick shift car.
Yeah, well, I did message him. I said, I really appreciate you trying to take out number one stick car, but it's not that important to me.
He could have just bumped him just enough.
Yeah, just tap him a little.
Yeah, he took out the cones, so Chad didn't get a slip, I'm sure, on that one.
I don't think he did. Yeah.
Yeah, because Kevin went across both ET and mile-per-hour cones, so it kind of ruined Chad's pass.
Full on sideways, yeah. Chad didn't have a good day. After that, he went 778, and his chutes didn't open, and so he did the same as Garrett. Yep. Straight into the sand pit, buried the whole front of the car. But he won. So, yeah, it was good that way.
That sand pit's not insane out there, but it's not fun to go into.
Yeah.
And Chad's got a pretty low turbo, so hopefully that's
it seemed like it didn't hurt it. I mean, it hurt the front a little bit, but other than that, he was okay. I asked him if he was going to try to go in sideways like Garrett, and he said, I was going in pretty hot. I thought it might flip it over. So
I was surprised with Garrett to turn sideways that it didn't try to roll the car or anything, because
bury one side or something.
It's a lot of mile an hour to just kind of turn it in sideways. So what is your car, and what's the story on it? I really don't even know exactly what the year and model and stuff of your car is. Yeah, I've self-proclaimed muscle car knowledge is very lost on me.
Well, I'll educate you on mine. So I bought that car about 20 years ago. I had a 69 Firebird convertible before that. And I didn't have a bar or anything, and it was going too fast for because you can only go 1350. And so I wanted something quicker. I didn't want to put a roll bar in the Firebird, and my brother actually found two GTOs, a 65 GTO and a 67 GTO. And the fellas were restoring the 67 GTO and needed some seats. And they went to the junkyard, tried to buy some seats out of this 65 GTO, and they said they wouldn't sell it to them, take the whole car or take none of it. And so they took the car, realized it was black, red interior, stick car, and decided not to cut it up. And that was essentially how I found it, from a junkyard.
So that car was from a junkyard. It seems so nice to be a junkyard car.
Yeah, it was not that nice. I could send you some pictures, but it was... The door on the passenger side was kicked in. The rear quarter was beat up. The front fender, when we tried taking the paint off, realized that it was a whole bunch of lead in it, and like an inch thick of lead. And the whole front end had been caved in. So it was, needless to say, it was a disaster.
Yeah, it was a mess.
So, I had this nice silver with a black top, Firebird, and sold that and brought home this junker that we could hardly even get off the trailer because somebody had taken the yoke off the pinion, so it was locking up the rear end. And my wife comes out and she's looking at me and she's thinking, "You are nuts." And so that was October, 20 years ago, whatever year that was, and I went at it hard for till August of next year, and fully did it, frame off, did everything with a goal of running 1150s and getting 20 miles a gallon. Mm-hmm. And here we are now running 850s and...
with the Pontiac motor originally still and everything?
Yeah. When I built it originally, it had a 400 Pontiac with a 4.5-inch stroke crank, and it was 90 over, which you'd think that thing's never going to survive, but it's still in my buddy's car now, and it was an amazing engine. And then my engine builder, in 2013, I told him I wanted to go to Drag Week. Mm-hmm. So he built this motor that's in my car now, and it was naturally aspirated, had a Dominator on it, and we drove all the way and did Drag Week in 2013.
Like a Dominator, not an EFI system. You're talking Dominator carburetor. Yeah. Because the Holly Dominator, people may assume you're talking like a
good catch.
EFI.
Yeah, this was a great big fuel dumping station.
Yeah. Car guys are so weird because you're like, I didn't want to put a roll bar in my car, so I did a frame off restoration on a different car.
Yeah, looking back at Devin Vanhoof, it's like, man, I should have just put a bar in my convertible. The car would have been lighter, but
it's just funny how our brains think like that. We're like, this is easier than the alternative, and
not the smartest bunch. No,
we all do that. we all think like, you have like a spare part, and you're like, I should build a whole nother car because I have this spare transmission. Like you go down this rabbit holes like that. So you're 20 years of driving this car now. Yeah,
I'm going to just comment on your last. So here's a good car analogy. So yesterday we all finished sick week. And there's free food over in the for all the people who competed, and that lineup is like, I bet you it's an hour and a half long. There's another lineup for food that's probably $20, and it's like really short. And it's like, that's car mentality for you. Yeah, we're all trying to save $20 here. Meanwhile, we spent God knows how much doing this event. It was like, I'm like. Don't get me wrong, I stood in that line for a few minutes too, and then I finally thought, I think I'm just going to spend $20 and go sit down. But
everybody sees you go to the $20 line, they're like, oh, the rich guy's in town.
Exactly, totally.
Like, oh man, still got money after sick week? You haven't maxed out your credit cards? Whoa.
Yeah.
That's the running joke is like, you got to max out your credit card on sick week.
Yeah.
Put yourself in financial hardship for drag racing.
Yeah, and all those people in that line, it's like, did they have a really bad one, or they just, now they're saving money for the next event? But
so it's a 67 GTO, right?
So mine is a 65 GTO.
Yours is the 65.
We bought both of those cars. My brother bought the 67, I bought the 65, and I ended up buying the 67 off him eventually, fixing up and selling it, but mine's a 65 GTO. Like I said, it's black, red interior. It was originally a 4-speed car, and it was a 4-barrel. It wasn't tri-power. But when I first built it, I put a tri-power on it and pretty much wore out the screws. And then in 2013, when I did Drag Week and got addicted to this crazy drag and drive stuff.
2014?
2013.
Oh, 2013. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's been, all downhill from there. So
that car seems good for drag and drive, though. Like, it's got a lot of space. It seems to tow a trailer pretty well because it's like longer vehicle. Like,
yeah,
it seems like it would be a better car than your previous one, even though that wasn't your goal. It just kind of seems like it luckily worked out that way.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to do Drag Week because that was the only event at the time. And so, the 65 GTO's got a great big trunk in it. At that time, I hadn't even thought about towing a trailer. But the huge trunk was like, I can fit like lots of things in that thing.
I know. I saw it when you opened it up. I was like, there's endless space in here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So you're right. It is a good drag and drive, except for it's really heavy when you have everything in it that I have.
Well, you still have back seats and stuff. Like,
the back seats are out right now. Last 2 years, I had Kyle Williams from Boosted Lifestyle. No. Boosted Lifestyle. Yeah, I had, and then I scooted by Colorado and picked up Blaine last year.
Yeah, Blaine had a fun time riding in the back, editing videos from what I've seen.
And driving, too. Yeah, he drove that thing through what I was hoping was going to be, 90 miles of calm road, and we ended up going through Albuquerque. No, we went through Alabama, and it was like full-on traffic, 80 miles an hour, but... If you know Blaine at all, you know that kid can wheel anything. So.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. I was a little nervous, but
car.
Yeah,
that's his bread and butter right there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Have him pull a trans with you, and it's like second nature to him. He's been doing that since he was in diapers, I think.
Oh, I think so. Yeah, yeah.
So you guys have what, 25,000 miles on that thing per year? just drag and drive stuff?
Last year was probably the most. We did 4 events, and it was right around 25,000 miles. So
you come down from the North Canada. I don't know exactly where, Alberta.
So you know where Montana is?
Yeah.
We're 7 hours north of the Montana-Canada border.
Holy cow. So to just get into the U.S. is 7 hours of driving.
Yeah.
Before you even cross into the U.S. and then make it all the way to Florida.
Yeah. So it's 3,000 miles is what it takes for us to get to Orlando.
And people talk like about drag and drives. They're like, oh, do your local event, do your regional one. Yeah. You did the farthest one possible.
Yeah, when it came up, first thing I did was curse Tom Bailey because it was like, oh man, like you put it right when our downtime is, when we should, be checking stuff over. And now there's like no downtime, but
not if you want to do all these drag and drives, yeah.
Yeah. But how do you not go to Florida in February when you're Canadian and hang out with all your buddies and friends? And
he's really created in the 3 years such an awesome environment of drag and drive. Like it feels like that event's been going on for 10 years when you're there.
It really does. I mean, he stole a whole bunch of people who helped with Drag Week, and I would say put his own slant on it. The drives aren't as long, so you can kind of enjoy some time with people, and I think that's pretty key. I think that was part of his goal was let's see if we can do this and create a little bit more time. Now, the funny part is because the drives are shorter and we're all race car guys, it's like, well, I'll just stay at the track later and get more hits in.
I'll just try to go faster. I got more time to fix my car.
Yeah, so we still ended up getting no sleep all week, and but yeah, I mean, Tom's done great. I'll tell you, Death Week was phenomenal. It was 9 days long. It was like truly.
Didn't expect you to say phenomenal. I expect you to say something maybe grueling or punishment or.
Yeah, I mean, it was
So Death Week, for people that don't know, is out in Las Vegas, the high desert. Right?
It started in Chandler, Arizona, and then we drove all the way south to the Mexican U.S. border, which was quite entertaining. Mm-hmm. And then all the way up the California coast, through the Sequoia Forest, over to Las Vegas, and then back down to Chandler. So it was 4 race days, 1/8 mile instead of 1/4 mile, mm-hmm. but it was 9 days long. So there was lots of just driving, almost a little bit power tour type of event.
And it ends at SEMA, doesn't it?
He was trying to get it to end at SEMA, but it didn't work out.
So you did 9 days of driving out in the deserts.
California coast.
Yeah.
The Sequoia Forest was amazing. I recently took my power steering off and realized I sure am glad I had power steering for the Sequoia Forest because there's like 180 degree switchbacks on that road. And yeah, there was more than one couple people lying there at the end going, oh, my arms are killing me.
Yeah, especially if you try to run like a full-size wheel and tire up front.
Yeah.
And not a skinny.
Yeah.
On the street. Yeah, that would probably be painful.
Yeah.
And you have an iron block and a heavy car, so no power steering on that deal is not like a Honda with no power steering.
No. So I switched right before coming to this event, and it's going back on. It's just, I mean, it's not that you can't do it, but between the cord trying to wrap around the steering column and because of so many more turns with manual steering and
the weight saving is just not worth it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and after watching Kevin wheel his car, I think he's got power steering. I'd have to check, but it makes it a lot easier to save your car when you you have power steering.
Yeah, I've heard some people talk about that too, where even some of these manual racks, you probably didn't put a aftermarket manual rack in, but they create such like you have to do so many turns to get the wheel to move. It actually makes it really hard to wheel a car if you have to in that situation because like 3 hand over hands turn 3 degrees.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're kind of in a bad situation.
Yeah. And I really didn't even think about the cord. But yeah, the other one was a quick ratio box. And this one is so many more turns that you're like trying to mess with the cord as you're trying to turn. And sometimes it's not that convenient to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's why I like the factory ratio without power steering. I'm fine with it on my cars, but I don't like the low ratio stuff. It's not fun. I mean, especially is your car. What did those come? Did they come rack and pinion or
No, old GM box.
Okay.
Yeah, and so my car came like that, so I just threw that one on before this trip. And the other thing is I've got it set up for race, so the caster is really it's like 5 degrees caster. So when you let go of that steering wheel, it straightens out. So you almost got to like get your fingers away, or you're gonna lose a finger. But
like self steers back to straight pretty well.
Yeah.
That's like drift guy stuff. They talk about that kind of thing. But then on a stick shift car, you have to think about that stuff pretty good also.
Yeah, you can't use two hands when you're using the other hand for something else. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you use like a staging brake or anything, or you just kind of old fashioned?
No, I have been talking to a few guys, and I was thinking about right now. I just have one button on my steering wheel, and it's line lock.
Oh, okay. So you use the line lock and you let off the line lock, kind of like a trans brake.
Yeah, I let off the line lock and let off at the clutch at the same time.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because the staging brakes are a pretty big one to load up the car a little bit, and like you can get the clutch almost all the way out.
Yeah.
I haven't driven any fast stick shift cars. I've just seen it enough times. And
yeah, watching Garrett do it, and there was another person that we had on Clutch Burners podcast that was doing it too. It was Miles Care. We just had him on, and he uses it, likes it for the same reason, because you can bump easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even Boosted Boys Kyle does that with his MR2.
Oh,
he can like load it all up, and the clutch is almost all the way out.
Yeah,
where you find it like you only have like a little release point, so you can kind of get a little bit more precise, I guess.
Cut a better light.
Hard on the clutch, but kind of is what it is in stick shift racing, I guess.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Miles' car is super impressive. I'm sure he's itching to do a drag and drive with that.
Yeah, we chatted with him quite a bit about that, and I think that's the goal eventually. He just wants to make his a little bit more reliable and stuff. But yeah, that thing is amazingly fast. I think I can't remember what he said.
I think he's
192 miles an hour or something.
Mid sevens. That's a tough one to say. We want to make it a little more reliable. I mean, that's not the drag and drive spirit. You got to take your car out untested, no idea what's going on.
Yeah, before I left for this drag and drive, we dry decked the heads and the block, so there's no water that flows between the deck surface. O-ringed it, and then hopped in and drove it 3,000 miles and hoped that it cooled okay when we got here, because it still has a factory style water pump, and basically it goes through the block, out the back, through the heads, and back to the rad. And thankfully it worked good. And now you can crank up the boost and not worry about blowing coolant all over the place anyways.
Yeah, that adds a level of safety that I'm sure is nice to know.
Yeah.
You're not going to put water under the tires at 160 miles an hour.
Yeah, in a 4,000-pound car.
Yeah, not exactly ideal. That car's so freaking cool though, man, because it like the way that it moves, like it's so big, and like this like big boat moving like this at stick shift is crazy. It kind of defies what you would assume would work almost, because you would think that would be so hard on that trans that it just wouldn't be happy.
Yeah.
But it's happy, it seems like, right? It's a T56 in there?
Yeah, it's a T56 from G-Force. And it's really all about clutch management. If you need to get your clutch sorted out so you can launch like a converter car, because I broke everything before I had clutch management sorted out. I broke a lot of stuff, like pretty much everything. King of the Open Road that Jared puts on, I drove down there and I broke a clutch fork on a pass, which locked the transmission in 2 gears and stopped the drive shaft and broke the rear end. So I broke the trans and I broke the rear end, and I pull off the track, and the lady and my drive shaft fell off like right as I was turning off the track, and I get out of the car and the lady's kicking my drive shaft off. And it's funny how events like that make you think, okay, well, I needed a drive shaft in my trailer now too. And anyways, that event, I had a 9-inch in the car. I had a spare transmission in the car. So yeah, a couple hours later, we were back up and running and drove it back to Canada. So
you had all that with you, or available enough?
I had everything with me. Yeah.
So the 9-inch like gear and everything, and
fully set up. It's 370 instead of 350, but it'll get me home. So, yeah, in fact, I had axles too, because I've been hitting it a little harder. Yep. So I have axles that I can just bolt right on. And
I was actually thinking about this. Would be cool to get a spare rear end as your trailer
Oh, yeah.
Like, replace your whole trailer axle with like a rear end, like a whole 9-inch and everything ready to go in.
Yeah.
Like a full dress 9-inch.
Just have it spinning. Yeah, that would be good.
Because it should work. I mean, it just would sit there, spin.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, if you have to leave your trailer at a track, it's not the end of the world to come back for that.
I know some people have done it with the skinnies. They use the skinnies on their trailer that they can use in the front of their car just in case, because I've seen probably half a dozen broken front wheels.
Yeah, that's fairly common. The skinnies breaking on
the ones that say
drives.
Do not run on street. Yeah,
Yep.
Like everything on our cars.
Yeah, those billet wheels are real nice and shiny. But then once you hit a pothole, especially in some states, some drag and drives are probably harder than others on these parts.
Yeah, I
would imagine you probably have a good gauge at this point which ones are going to be, the street drives are going to be really hard on cars.
I will say the worst roads I've been on out of all of these events are around Oklahoma. There's some nasty roads there where you're just thinking it's going to break something. Yeah. Something's going to break. But
so that would be race week then. Because they do Rocky Mountain Race Week, and then Matt Frost added Race Week around Oklahoma area. And I know Garrett and them lost an oil pan now in Oklahoma. Yeah. Ripped it right off the highway.
It's brutal. That road everywhere around Oklahoma is brutal. Yeah.
It's funny people don't think about that though, how hard the street is on things.
Oh yeah.
You hit loose items all the time on the street in a race car. It's not going to be fun.
And it rattles stuff loose. Like I went to make my first pass on, I don't even know if it was maybe it was just, no, it was just yesterday actually. And I get in the car and I'm just going to go for a little drive and dump some water out of the intercooler. And I push in my gas pedal and it's like moving this way. It's moving like sideways. And I'm like, well, that ain't right. So the two screws that hold the gas pedal on were loose. And thankfully I caught it before I went up for the pass and so tighten those up. And it's like, how does that rattle loose? But
yeah, I mean, I've had that happen on my car once too. I was wide open on the trans brake, let off the button, and the gas pedal just breaks off right when I let off the button, and it's just like wobbling down there, and I was able to pull it. It's cable driven.
Yeah.
So you kind of was able to putz down track by like doing one of these.
Oh yeah.
But like, what are the chances? Like the second I let off the trans brake button is when it just falls. I'm like, of course.
Oh, it is the craziest stuff that happens on drag and drives.
And
stuff
then
rattles loose.
Everybody talks about the community. Everybody will always help you in any situation, whether they're in first place right above you or, on sick ward. They'll come and help you. I know, shout out to my boy Jimmy Dale. I was just watching his video. Dude, what is this guy doing, man?
Yeah, we should talk about that for a minute, actually.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Jimmy a little bit because he was supposed to come down and hang out and be on and all this good stuff. I'm sure he had more plans of this week than what had led. So if people don't know Jimmy Dale on YouTube, he's a rising star. Everybody loves him. Highly entertaining. First day he came in, he had his car and he went to take the radiator cap off and it was still hot and burned basically 40% of his body, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, so here's the whole story though, and I think it's a good lesson for all of us car guys. So he bought that car, so he didn't build it, and then on I think they were doing a competition at Orlando, and I think he was actually just at a restaurant or something, and I don't know if he had made passes yet or not, but it actually blew the lower rad hose off, and so like all of us who probably buy a new car, you'd think, oh, that wasn't tight. So he tightened it up. They added water. He ran it for a few minutes and grabbed the towel, put it over the rad cap, like we've all done.
Yeah.
And he went to pop the rad cap off, and that thing was pressurized and blew his hands up enough and blew the cap off and blew all over his hands and face and arms and his chest. And so I think that the rad cap had actually failed and it wasn't relieving pressure. That's why it blew the hose off first. And so Jimmy Dale's been around cars long enough, like you and I have, that he knows to try to protect himself. But I think, and there was so he thinks it got a head gasket. So the combustion from the head gasket pressurized the coolant system. The cap was not relieving any pressure, and maybe he could have grabbed the rad hose or something, but to to check for pressure, but man, it got him good. Like,
well, sometimes, you know, on these deals where you're kind of like stressed, there's a lot going on and you're trying to get to the event, like you're a little tired, you start to not think like correctly and like yourself. Yep. And that's what I worry a little bit about that on the Dragon Drives, where people are exhausted and their cars are kind of cobbled together at the end. And he was just at the beginning, but it wasn't his car. It wasn't his build. Yeah. And then just made a simple mistake that any of us could easily make, man. And I was glad to see that, you know, his wife wasn't close enough to get it. Yeah. And it was just contained to him. But I was gutted to see that it's tough.
we went and tried to help him, and when I saw him, and I was trying to convince him that I'm like, dude, you need to just take care of yourself. Don't think you're going to try to make this trip. And
that's what I thought first. He sent me a photo of him in the hospital with like a thumbs up, and he was like, "Oh, I'll make it a sick week tomorrow." I was like, don't no. Like, we don't want to see you do sick week like this, man. Like, go take care of yourself. Like, there's always another event. Like, there's plenty of them, and just 40% of his body, I guess, burn. I don't know how they talk about burns, I guess, in like percentages of your body and how much of it, and second degree burns and all kinds of crazy stuff, man.
Well, and, you know, thankfully it's second degree, so he doesn't need skin graft. But I mean, they're still like scraping his skin off. And, I just watched I finally had a few minutes to watch his last video where we were helping him with the truck. And I was glad that he went back to the hospital and they took care of him, because his arms were literally like seizing up. And
well, if he was going to go stand out in the sun for a couple of days, that was going to make it even worse.
Oh yeah, he couldn't even he came on registration day, and you could tell he was shaking, and it was like, go back to the hotel, man. Go sleep.
And I saw the video too. He had so many people helping him. You guys were there helping him on because then he bought another car.
Yeah, he bought this truck that he knew nothing about. So
he went down the same route again. He was like, "Oh, I know nothing about this car that broke. Let me buy this truck that I know nothing about and try to make it make sick week."
But I tell you what, I love the dude, man. He's what a trooper. And we were trying to help it out. I just wanted to make sure the steering was okay for her, and because she was going to drive it. She was still going to compete at that point. We're like, but yeah, he's great. He's like you said, he's a rising star, and he's super funny dude, and puts on. At some point, I'm going to drive down and race in his small tower gangster shootout at Yellow Belly, because that looks like a crazy ass event.
Like, Yellow Belly seems wild. It's like a different world out there. Yeah. Like, you go to these like radial prep tracks around here and you're like, oh, okay, these are like regular tracks. And then you see like Yellow Belly and you're like, oh, okay, this is different.
Yeah. Yeah, it is definitely different. Yeah.
That would be fun for you though. You might have to put like a slick tire on that thing.
Yeah. I have both. I have rims.
You run
with
radials
slicks.
Here, right?
I do. The first year I didn't, and struggled a bit like anybody with slicks with these flypaper tracks. And then last year I came out and it was like, oh, that's why we all run radials down here. And
it's interesting how the big tires and slick tire cars struggle so much on these tracks. Yeah. Except for Gainesville. Yeah. Because Gainesville isn't exactly the best prep. I'm sure you saw that. Everybody was spinning.
Yeah, that's where I got my new personal best. Funny enough. Like
that's funny.
I didn't spin. The heavy car really helps, but yeah, that was where I ran 851. So the first year, that was my PB, but it was on slicks, and people are coming back going, oh, everyone's spinning. So I run a Mega Squirt on my car, and I have the ability on my tablet to change the tune. So I kept dialing back the launch, and then it still went 877 at that track. So that track's treated me pretty good. But
yeah, treated you well. Everybody else I saw was fighting it. Even Brett and them got a couple struggling passes, which is surprising for that car. Well, yeah. They don't exactly spin the tires very often. No. The traction control in that thing is so advanced. It's like NASA level type of shit.
Yeah, it's got Davis on it probably? Or?
No, they use the Motec for it all.
Oh, okay.
So it's all through the same kind of ECU. And you can hear when it gets into it a little bit, but it's pretty high level. And then I should have had you bring your trophy in, man. You came second place. Yeah. But second place, and didn't you come first last year?
I got 2 orange helmets. And as far as I know, I think those are the two only orange helmets in Canada. So I got the first year. I tell I tell everybody this: you got to show up at these events. If you think there's faster cars than you coming, and you're not going to show up because of that, this is a war of attrition. And so the first year, did Chad show up on the first year?
He did, but he broke. Or he showed up last year for sure.
Yeah, it was last year.
Yeah.
The first year I can't remember, but I ended up. I think Frank Romano was behind me. He was in second place, and I had about a half a second on him. But it was, that was great. And then last year, I thought for sure Chad was going to. There was Chad, Taylor Hedrick, and Jeremy Howell.
Oh yeah, Taylor with the SN95, right? Yeah. The new Edge Mustang. Yeah, that thing's badass.
Yeah, he's been 750s. So. I figured one of them's going to finish. Like the chance of me winning last year, I was like, it ain't going to happen. But I'm going to drive and have fun. And then, so last year, Jeremy broke in the dyno. Taylor hydrolocked his motor on registration day. And then Chad blew a hole the size of my head in the side of his transmission. Now, we were at Bradenton, but he told me that this was a vacation for him, and his wife was with him, and he was like, I am not going to thrash in, Corvettes with independent rear suspension and all the mess to actually change that out.
Yeah, you have to take the whole rear subframe out, the brakes off,
no
all
small
kinds of
job.
thing. The rear end's out of the car.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass.
So, once he broke, then I was once again half a second above the next guy. So I was really fortunate last year because I was one and done every day. And, it was good.
Dragon drives are the perfect example of like you can show up and win even if you don't have the fastest car at all. Because even in testing was insane to see the amount of cars that didn't make it out of testing. Like cars that are good, reliable cars like Steve Morris broke. Devin Vanderhoof was broken. Like Garrett broke the first day. Like it was insane the amount of just damage on cars just after the first day. So people, sign up and they're like, oh man. And then 3 days later, you're like, oh shoot, all those guys are gone.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people, sign up for unlimited just because war of attrition. It's like, I got a 14-second car and win unlimited.
That happened on, I think it was one of the Rocky Mountain race weeks I did when I did it in the Orange Mustang. I looked at the unlimited after the first day and I was like, oh shoot, I should have signed up for that because the third place in unlimited was Chad with. It was like a wagon that he had, like a Buick wagon. It was Chad from Bang Shift.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, he was third place in that. Like, he went like 15-second pass every day.
Oh, yeah.
And I could have gotten some kind of trophy.
Yeah.
Those index classes they're tight.
Oh, yeah. 14001 wins the class or something. It's like, oh, man.
I'm like, I'm not good enough for that. Or I'm not willing to go that many passes per day. I want to get on the road.
Get on the road, yeah. There was a lot of carnage this year. Like it was good to see him back, but unfortunately he didn't finish.
He was thrashing.
He was. They put new bearings in it, and then it broke the manjol off and pretty much took everything out that they had just replaced. And they had planned on refreshing the motor on Friday. Like they brought extra heads. He's out there, ball holding the block. It's like
quite a maintenance schedule. To be planning to redo your engine mid-week.
And the craziest part is, what do you win? You might win a guitar.
Yeah, I think fastest overall might win some good money. I thought they won like
in Race Week they do. As far as I know, Race Week is the only one that has like a $5,000 if you win overall. It used to be $10,000, but then they split it up now. So there's a shootout, and $5,000 for overall. But
I thought it was like 10 or so grand to win fastest overall. Maybe not. They don't advertise it at all, but they don't really need to advertise anything because it sells out in 3 minutes. There's no real need to advertise an event that sells out as soon as you post it live.
The insanity of car guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're all like, how fast
can I give my $500 to sign up for this insanity where you can't really win much, but
itching to blow up our cars.
Yeah.
And even Matt with the Miata, he blew up his car in Gainesville and put a new bottom end in it, which I was surprised to see. I mean, I know he's a hard worker and everything, but putting a whole bottom end in a car,
it is crazy.
At the track or wherever he went to do it is quite an accomplishment to do. It's not the same as like a Lutz car, doing that on a Pro Mod is how they're built to do that kind of stuff. But then you do like a stock bodied car and you can't get a wrench in anywhere. And you're like, I'm sure you have struggled with that kind of stuff too. You're like, I need to get rid of all this stuff.
I built my car to access everything, like even the cross member on the A body. There is no pulling that pan unless you modify it. So I modified it. So I thought if I ever have to, I can drop the center section out and pull the pan and check bearings and stuff because it's kind of hard to pull a Pontiac block in the middle of a parking lot.
Yeah, you're not
getting 4 of your buddies out there to lift that thing. Like, it's heavy.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure that thing gains some ride height right when you pull the motor out of it.
Oh, yeah. You jack and the car keeps going up and up, and then eventually it's like, oh, there we go.
Oh, finally.
Yeah,
that thing's so cool, though, man. The Pontiac stuff is so interesting because I feel like not that many people run Pontiac motors at the moment.
No, I think... there was a Trans Am there, like a Smokey & the Bandit Trans Am. It had a Pontiac in it, and there might have been
so nice.
Oh, it is so.
That thing's so well put together. The exhaust cutouts on the side and everything.
Yeah, it is. I'm trying to remember what his name is, but that car is amazing.
I don't know the guy. I just looked at his car for a couple hours.
Yeah, and it's a Pontiac stock block, and he's putting like 23 pounds through it, and so all of us that play in the Pontiac world are like every pass is like, geez, and he's running 820s. And I think it's 3,500 pounds, so it's about 500 pounds lighter than my car, but it is an amazing, beautiful car, like phenomenal.
And to do that all and stick with the Pontiac motor takes like you got to really like it, I guess. You got to really want the Pontiac motor in there still.
Yeah, it's funny. I like having a Pontiac in my Pontiac, but I am not against people putting LSs in them. Like, do what you got to do so you can get out. If you need to save for 10 years to put a Pontiac motor in, put an LS in, get out and drive the thing, because it's harder. It's harder with a Pontiac, but I will say that they're like Swiss watches when you get them dialed in. Like, being a clutch car, it's not as consistent as an automatic car, but it's amazing what I put that thing through. Like, it's quite often when I go to look at the data log and I look for the high RPM and it's at like 7350 or something, I'm thinking I better not show the engine builder that because it's a big stroke, big motor, and but man, it takes all kinds of abuse. And
your car always sounds nice and happy and crisp when it's running. Like, it doesn't sound like clankety or anything. Like, it sounds like you can kind of tell when a car's sounding nice and crisp. And anytime your car pulls up, I always kind of, like you're saying, the Swiss watch sound of like, it's ticking nicely.
Yeah, it's got EGTs on every cylinder, so I can keep an eye on stuff pretty good. And 25,000 miles last year without freshening it up, and it probably had 15,000 miles before that. The last time I saw a machine shop, so even the valve springs on there, like, I thought I should probably change them, and I haven't. Mainly because talking to some guys like, some of the drag and drive anyways, getting bad valve springs right now. So it's like, mine are still working. I have an on-head tester. I can check them. They're still good. It's like, I don't know. Why fix what's not broke?
Yeah, that's the tough part because, you might put some nice new parts in there and some junk Chinese parts are really what you got. And it's like, maybe this old stuff where it's like same with you're talking about your water pump. You get a brand new one, it may be some junk, not as nice.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the things that I've learned is always be careful when you think I'm just going to freshen something up right before a trip. And Devin Vanderhoof, I think it was the first sick week. That's what he did. He's like, I'm going to freshen this thing up. It was working great. And it ended up with some, I don't know if it was bad machine work or parts, but yeah, and that fixed him, and he was done. And so he's like,
I think he took out the cylinder head, the bottom end, on the
and
first pass. Went 640. I mean, it was rolling.
It was rolling. All right, smoking out the back end.
Yeah, not taking anything away from him. He has that thing cooking. It just parts failure gets you.
Oh, it does. It really does. Yeah.
Especially on a badass big block like that. I mean,
yeah.
It would have been really cool to see him and Brett go back and forth.
Oh yeah.
At that, because I think they would have been really close.
Yeah.
Competing with each other, and it would have been cool, but I don't know. I like seeing the small tire cars win.
Oh, it is impressive.
I got a warm fuzzy feeling when a small tire car gaps a big tire car.
I think the reality is these tracks around here are a small tire car, and good luck trying to get as Devin would say, a big floppy tire down one of these tracks.
And you got to give Lutz credit. His car had been sitting there in the shop for years. And then they pulled it out and redid everything just to come to sick week. So it's not like he had a dialed in car or anything. They just went for it.
Yeah.
Which takes a lot of guts to just be like, oh, we'll just try it out, I guess. We'll just go for it.
Yeah, and I think through No Prep Kings and stuff, he had learned more about different surfaces and stuff, but still different. And good on him for showing up too. I think some people who are, in front of their keyboards don't realize that, when people like Jeff Lutz or Garrett or yourself show up to these events, it really helps the promoters. I know for Matt and June, when Garrett shows up to an event, they don't have to pay for any track rentals because there's enough people show up at the gate that helps with that. So, I'm all about keeping the promoters in good standings. So when, if Garrett gets in at the last minute, you ain't going to see me raising any flags. It's like, yeah, we all compete to get in. But at the same time, these guys are spending a lot of money for these events. So it's pretty cool when guys
I don't get, I guess I'm on the other side of it, but I understand when there's like a ticket handed to somebody that is like people want to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
People want to see Lutz. So, if he gets a last-minute ticket to come in, nobody should have a problem with that. We should all be excited for that because as a racer, you also want to race in front of a full crowd. And if Lutz helps fill up those stands, that's great because nothing like making a pass with the bleachers full. That's that's what we want. That's peak awesome. And especially watching all of Sick Week, watching these full tracks at every event, and the pits were flooded with fans talking to everybody. That's cool. That's that shows how awesome drag racing is and how awesome these dragon drives are. And if somebody shows up to watch Lutz and then they end up going and talking to somebody else that they never saw before, that's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I think I'm a perfect example of that. I'm from the middle of nowhere in Canada, come down to these events, but after Derek Putnam calls me, the Canadian Chuck Norris every time, and then, people says that I've driven this thing all the way from Canada. I got to get a shirt that says, yes, I drove it all the way from Canada because, or yes, I'm that guy, because I bet you, I don't know, it felt like 1,000 people came up and said, "Did you drove? Are you the Canadian that drove this all the way from Canada? You're that guy?" And I'm like, "Yep, I'm that guy." You don't have
a secret truck and trailer waiting on the, waiting in Florida at the edge of it, and you just kind of secretly drive it in.
Well, it's funny. Even after listening to the podcast with Wes Buck and yourself, I thought, I gotta start posting more. And this time, I basically tried to post a little bit every day just on Facebook and stuff. And so I think people realized that, he actually drives it. Starts out in the snow and drives it all the way. And it's really far. People think, oh, they just go to Canada north of here. And it's no, you got to drive all the way west.
Well, I was keeping up with your whole trip down because it's interesting seeing, it's crazy seeing, that even when you type it in Google Maps, they break it up.
Yeah.
They don't even give you a full breakdown. They're like, oh, it takes one day to get to here and then another day there. I'm like, they don't even want to give you the full.
I was showing some
story.
people when you do it on Apple Maps, it pulls up the globe, and you could see the round Earth because it's round.
Yeah.
You know. And yeah, it's pretty funny when you pull it up and it like pulls the globe up, and then it's like, oh, this is like from
It
one
has to
end
like
to north.
stretch the map in a weird way. It's like, oh, are you sure?
Yeah. Did you make a mistake?
Yeah. Because even like truck drivers don't even do that. They they hand off and as they go. But it's cool. And shout out to Derek Putnam and Adam Dory, because they did an awesome job keeping everybody informed and talking about every single car, not just like the highlights of who and what. And Derek is an awesome announcer. He does a really good job at highlighting every driver like they are the star of the whole show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really cool to see and gets the fans really hyped and stuff. And especially because there's a live feed that people are trying to keep up with and all that. It's just cool. It's cool that Tom Bailey's built such an awesome team.
You know, I think he was focused on Sick the Mag right off the bat with, it's like, I'm going to feature every car that competes. It's not just me or, you know. Yeah, it's really helped. I know, you know, even for me, when I, you know, need new shocks or stuff, you know, people are starting to get to know me, and it's because of all of this, right? It's because Lutz shows up at the track, and, you know, they're watching Lutz, but they're hearing about, you know, the Canadian Chuck Norris. Yeah, it's just, it helps, right?
Yeah, it gets people in the door. That's the goal. And like, that's the same with like No Prep Kings. Like, it gets so many people in the door into drag racing, and how many people followed Lutz from No Prep Kings to Drag and Drive, and then will follow a Drag and Drive to, you know, small tire racing with Jimmy Dale or something like that.
Yeah,
like, it's
totally.
just kind of, it grows the whole community in an awesome way. What's next on your list for Drag and Drives then for 24?
Miles of Mayhem is in end of July. So
Is that up north?
Yeah, it's the Canadian one.
Okay.
This time it's not as close. Like last year, it pretty much started right at, you know, an hour from my house. Apparently, my car doesn't like it when it's that close. It likes to drive for a while first. Like, I got to drive all the way to Florida.
Break it in a little.
I got to drive all the way to Florida to get a personal best. Like, it's the only place I get a personal best.
How are the tracks up there?
I'd say they're almost no prep compared to here.
Yeah. We love glue in Florida.
Yeah. Well, and you guys know how to do it. Like, we don't have that kind of prep. There's a few 8th mile tracks that are getting better, but nothing's compared to here. And I don't know if it's like minus 40 in the winter, and that, you know, pretty much fixes the track.
Probably doesn't help.
Probably doesn't help, but
when your oil looks like maple syrup coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
As thick as I was watching your videos of the oil in negative 40 degrees. What you're talking Celsius though?
Yeah, 40 C is 40F.
Okay.
Yeah,
so once you get down to that low,
it crosses over, and so that the one day it was minus 43 Celsius, which is minus 45 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right before you left.
Yeah, like a week before I left, and I was thinking, and here's an example of how bad that is on your car. Like, I've just got a Colorado, like a 2-door or a 4-door Colorado, and I think it broke the wires that go through the door into the chassis, because all of a sudden my power windows and power door locks aren't working. So I'm going to have to take it apart and look. But it is so cold, like plastic just breaks. And
so you'll have to daily drive the Pontiac when you get back.
Yeah. No, you just don't lock it. You know, it'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's trying to steal a car in negative 40, they might need it more than you.
And we don't, you know, that's, you know, I think the longest I've seen it up there is maybe for 3 weeks. I mean, and you start getting used to it, which is insane. But
it's a long time in negative 40. We're in Florida here, so that's like unfathomable numbers. Even when I grew up in New York, like, it was -1 was impressive.
Yeah,
like, we didn't see, because I was so close to the ocean, it kept it pretty warm. But like, I've never experienced negative 40. I can't even.
I walked from one building to another at work, and my eyeball was starting to hurt. It was like, oh my God, is my eyeball freezing? Like, I got to get to that building quick, because this is bad. Yeah.
That just doesn't even make sense how a car can even, it's impressive that cars can even operate in general in that temperature.
What's really crazy is the German cars like BMWs, Mini Coopers. My wife's got a Mini, and Volkswagen. They don't even sell them with block heaters. You can't buy them with block heaters. And people start them up and run them. And I showed you what 530 looked like at mine. It's like molasses. It's moving so slow.
Yeah.
The crazy part for me is they seem to be fine.
Huh.
They start them up. They run them. They sound horrible when you start them, but eventually they warm up. And yeah, I don't know if it's just so cold.
When oil starts to freeze over is weird.
Yeah.
It's a weird situation.
Yeah.
And then people talk about the electric cars in that. That's a whole different world. The range goes down or all kinds of crazy stuff.
They don't last very long in that weather. No.
But not, I can't imagine many cars liking that weather at all. It seems wild.
No, and it's everything. Like I said, like any of the plastic parts that are in the car, like even hitting bumps, you're like, oh. Mm-hmm. I do have a 2010 2SS Camaro, and I drove it at like about minus 35. And the shocks in that thing, that oil must have been salt because it was like every time you hit a bump, it's like, oh my God.
Never heat up enough.
Rattling my eyes out.
Don't they do weren't they doing a drag and drive in Alaska? Did you make it to that one or are you trying to?
I didn't. I was on the shirt, so I bought a shirt. But after talking to David Williams and stuff, because they stopped by my place on the way home, and it sounded like there's just about 100 miles of gravel road with like big bumps and stuff. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I'll drive my car through a lot of stuff, but gravel roads, I don't know. So I'm not sure if I'm
tough.
Yeah.
Gravel roads with race cars don't mix that well. We ended up on a couple gravel roads in Rocky Mountain Race Week by accident, usually.
Yeah.
Because up in Colorado, there's a ton of just like little backwoods roads like that. Florida, we're pretty well paved.
Yeah.
It's hard to find a gravel road. I don't know why that is, but it's hard to find it. But up in Colorado, they were everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one wrong turn, and then you're like, trying to figure out how the heck.
Those mountains are something to drive through in Colorado, though. I'm sure your brakes have felt that.
Yeah, I mean, with a stick car, it's great. You just you just downshift and watch it. The ECU shut the injectors off, and the temperature cools down, and
yeah, and you don't have to worry about your trans getting too hot going up it like the Turbo 400 guys, where they're just like, oh, please, please don't let go. Clutch starts slipping going up the mountain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, the stick cars and mountains are perfect.
Yeah, I'm sure you've helped fair share of broken automatic guys trying to make it up mountains with a trailer and then load them down.
Yeah. Yeah, it's stick cars for the win.
Did you see the trailer rule at Sick Week now has changed to where it's anything with a single axle?
Yeah.
So I saw one trailer that was like a 10 by 6 looking trailer. Yeah. It's kind of cool. I mean, I guess if you can tow any size trailer, live it up. It's a risk.
I heard Bankshift Chad talking about this too, and I'm in the same place. Hey, all the power to you, man. It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be able to tow guys like Chris Hine with the 33, he's built sleeping quarters and everything. And so the majority of that trailer is for sleeping. Mm-hmm. And then he's got storage, which would probably fit in a 4x8. And it looks cool as shit driving down the road. So
yeah, if you want to try to tow it, more power. If you want to tow a one-car trailer, by all means. I mean, it may not work out well for you, but
yeah, it was pretty funny. On I think it was on the way home from Death Week. I videoed Chris Hine going by, and one of the guys back in Canada watched the video, and he's like, I was going to message you because I thought I saw the hitch, like something weird was going on with the hitch, but it wasn't, it probably wasn't 40 miles after the video. His trailer, the nut on the ball was coming loose. So what we saw in the video is the trailer, the ball going like this, and the ball comes right off. And thankfully it didn't beat up his car or crash his trailer too bad, but
yeah, trailer woes are a real thing. I've seen people lose wheels. I've seen people like lose the wheel off the trailer or lose their wheel that was mounted on the trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Like their wheel and tire. And then I've seen a big one is the hitches start to droop.
Yep.
I've seen that on like, I think Corvettes and like GTOs. I've seen it pretty bad on like newer GTOs. Yeah. And you're like dragging the nose of your trailer. That one seems really common. And then Doug Cook has famously rolled his
Yep.
half a dozen times at that point.
I've rolled mine in the middle of Billings, Montana. I was trying to make a left-hand turn, and there was just so much traffic, and then I looked, and it looked like I could do a U-turn. So finally, I just got into the throttle, went out, did a U-turn, and I watched in the back mirror as my trailer flipped sideways, and thankfully it came loose from the hitch, and unfortunately we didn't get a picture of it lying sideways in the middle, but we flipped it back up and got the hammer and screws out and put her back together. And
Sure, that was a bit of a mess in there.
yeah,
Everything bangs around a litit bit, but at least it came loose easily and didn't like try to bend up the.
I think that was sick week. I think that was the first sick week actually that I crashed it on the way. It was like
It's crazy how they do that. Like you wouldn't imagine like a loaded down little trailer like that would be so easy to tip.
pretty narrow. Apparently,
Yours seems wider though. Doug's is super narrow.
Yeah, this new the one I'm running now is nice and wide. So
that must be the difference.
apparently, I wasn't smart enough to own that narrow one. So
Yeah, because Doug's trailer is like narrow and tall.
Yeah.
And then you put a generator up on the top of it. That I understand. Yeah, your new one seems pretty good.
yeah, you can. I've tried. You can. You have a hard time flipping that one over.
Yeah, you got to really work for it. And
Yeah.
I've talked to James about it because James in Ruby doesn't run a trailer. And I was like, why don't you run a trailer at some point? He's like, nah, I just like to be able to drive quick.
Yeah, it is nice to not run a trailer, but when you get to the track and you carry all the crap I do, it's a workout to empty out your whole trunk and back seat and everything. But
I've done that the past 2 years. I emptied out everything. And then you start to look at stuff and you're like, why did I bring this?
yeah,
I'm such an idiot.
yeah,
And then I start to look at the trailers when I walk around almost more than the cars because some people build out these trailers next level. Like Alex Taylor's trailer has all the tools hanging nicely and stuff. Day one.
Yeah.
Sure, day 6, they're all thrown in there.
I think they do a pretty good job.
Chad had a pretty nice trailer I was looking at. Like there's some cool setups. Garrett's trailer is pretty unreal.
Yeah. That's what I love about this too, is the creativity of people. Like, I mean, when you go to Drag and Drive, the variety of cars, the variety of trailers, the creativity of how people are making stuff work, big root style superchargers with a throttle body below it, you know, like.
And they take off the pulley on the top.
Yeah.
They take off the belt. Yeah, that's so cool how that stuff works, man. Because watching people switch over a car and how like they may not have done it 100 times. This may be their first time switching it over, and it's like there's so much involved in that. And one of the things that Brett and Jim do is they have a list.
Yeah.
They check off every track. Like we did all these things every time, so you don't mistake anything because by day 5.
You're tired.
Got 2 hours of sleep. I don't think Lutz actually slept at all from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Him and Junior, I guess they call him, Jeffrey.
Yeah, Jeffrey.
I don't think they slept even a bit.
Yeah, I don't know. They thrashed. Yeah, just amazing because Jeff knew what he was getting into, and still came and did it. He's got nothing to prove. He's not. I mean, I think he still wanted to come and run 5s. That was his goal. Probably 5s at every track, and never ran a 5. And but just crazy how.
I'm excited for to see Matt's car from Rocky Mountain, his car back out.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been a while since that thing's really done something super badass, and I feel like he's right there, almost ready, the Hulk.
Yeah,
big Pro Charger deal.
Yeah, it's a beautiful car. I don't know if you've seen it up close, but it is amazing. Like it is meticulous.
I've seen a little bit of it, and I think it's an event promoter bad luck maybe because I feel like he's had bad luck on his own events, and it's the same with Tom Bailey.
Oh yeah,
has had bad luck on his own events, but then good luck on other people's.
Yeah,
maybe it's an event promoter thing. Like
I was talking to him yesterday. I'm like, hey, congrats on finally completing your own event. So if he did complete it,
he did. Event, he kicked the head gasket out of it, I think. On his the whatever that is, the big tire Durango with a Gen 3 Hemi.
Yeah, he didn't have very good luck on. He didn't finish Death Week. He didn't finish the last 2 sick weeks.
Yep.
So
yeah, he tore up the motor in Bradenton last year on his 2.0.
Yeah,
on sick 2.0. To be the event promoter and still run your own event is a bold move. I feel like I'd be too all over the place trying to manage 50 other things.
He's got a fantastic team that work for him for sure. That he obviously can be like, good luck, guys. Let me
Yeah.
know if you need it. If you have any questions.
I may be broken, but
Yeah.
keep on carrying on. What's next on your car then? So I mean, I feel like it's been together in this state for quite a while.
Yeah. I mean, so the dry decking was an upgrade. The next upgrade that I was planning on doing, and I still might. Well, I got like 3,000 miles to think about it. Is going methanol. Like, it's about 100 pounds of weight between the air to water, the tank in the back, all the hoses, and then the water itself.
So you would just run no intercooler then, even on
Yeah.
the street and everything, just.
Yeah, and people ask me that, what do you do on the street? I don't do anything. I don't run the water pump.
Yeah.
The air inlet temperatures are fine.
Yeah, you're making no boost, so it
You're
doesn't
making
really-
no boost. So yeah, so on the street it would be better because it would be lighter too. So
And
I
it would
don't
take
know.
some weight off the front, which would be nice.
Yes, it definitely would.
Gain a little bit more working space.
Yep, it clean up the engine bay a bit because right now it looks like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. But the thing with C16, and so I went 880 yesterday, and we were troubleshooting a fuel pressure issue and unplugged the intercooler water pump. Didn't plug it back in. It went 880 at 158, and I was thinking, I'm surprised it didn't run more mile an hour because I was starting to turn it up, and then Colby, who was with us, we went to throw some ice in, and he's like, you got an unplugged wire there, and I'm like, oh, we forgot to plug that. I'm thinking, oh, that's why that mile an hour was down, and
There you
but
go.
C16 is really safe, and so I'm a little bit torn. Methanol has its own issues with fire, and you can't see it, and the pure volume that. So I don't know. I'm still debating that one.
Methanol's pretty great. I mean, the cooling factor is definitely huge, and if the classes allow it,
Yeah.
it's hard not to. But it's also, I feel like, easier to get in a
Yeah.
lot of these places than C16.
Yeah.
Everybody runs methanol. Everybody
Quite a bit
carries
cheaper,
methanol.
yeah.
Cheaper is nice. I've always run E85 in all my cars just because it's easy to get, and I could get it by the barrel.
That's what
pretty
you run in the
easily.
Camaro?
Yeah.
Z85? Yeah.
Yeah, I've always just run. Well, it's Ignite, so it's like barrel E85.
Yeah.
It's not just like pump.
Yeah.
But I mean, methanol's pretty good. You can run E on the street too if you did have cooling issues at all. But
Yeah. So I don't think I'll change my pump gas system because it's finally, lined out enough that it doesn't matter how hot it is. I don't have any, like when we were in Death Week, it was, 108 degrees outside or something. And that thing just cruised right along and didn't have any vapor lacking issues or anything. And so I don't think I'll change the pump side, but the methanol would be nicer, the lighter weight. I might think about putting a fire system in there so you remove, at least you can put the bottles to, towards the back of the car. But
I have a fire system in my car, and it's a great peace of mind, especially because, your car can catch on fire on the street where no one's around.
yeah,
It's one thing on the track where there's some safety crew, but if you're in the middle of Montana somewhere.
Jason Sack on this trip, don't know if it was day one or before testing, he his catch cans, he hadn't emptied them for a while, and he was running methanol, and it caught fire under the hood. And at first he couldn't see any flames, didn't know what was going on until stuff started. It's like, why is there heat waves coming up from underneath the hood? That's pretty scary thing. So yeah, you got to figure that out for sure.
I think Tom McGillis had a similar deal.
Yeah.
And, I completely forgot that he was down here for it. And then, it's the white ZL1 Camaro, if anybody's seen it on 1320.
The why not Camaro, yeah.
Why not? Because he got it at 0 miles, brought it right to
Larson. Yep.
and then had it built into a Pro Mod, basically.
Why not? He had
With
money.
every feature still in the car.
Air conditioning, yeah.
But O-ring failed on an injector.
Yeah.
Fuel spraying at a fire hose because, it's a big block that probably makes 3,000 horsepower.
Probably, yeah.
And fire under the hood and put him out before the event even started. Another one that was broken before even day one.
Yeah.
That was
So much carnage this time.
so much, I think.
Yeah, so I think my goal now is, because I ran 851, my chassis is only good for 850, but I went 861. So, there was a couple of really close to chassis cert ones, but up north. I mean, down here, you feel like a hero. You feel like you got your chassis all sorted out, everything's perfect. But the track prep has a lot to do with it. So
yeah, track prep can make up for a bad chassis.
Yeah,
well.
yeah. For a guy who doesn't understand the chassis quite well. So I think, losing some weight and trying to make it more consistent. I'm still quite a ways from my chassis cert in the 8th mile, so I think I can run 535 with an 850 cage, and I think when I went 851, it was 560. So that kind of tells you how the car back halves. But
yeah,
that's probably it. Just try to get it more consistent and try to go down. I don't think I'm going to put a different cage in, but I didn't think I was going to have an 850 cage in it either. So
yeah, that's tough once you get to that point where you have to add more safety, because the next levels of safety are a lot of bars.
Oh yeah,
it gets significantly more intrusive and race car, and you and your dad do this together, and it gets to be a bit more frustrating dealing with that much cage.
And everything chassis certs, more money, just more safety gear, and so.
And running faster then, because then you're going to want to try to get to your chassis cert.
Yeah.
It's like a goal then you set. You're like, I gotta escape this chassis cert now.
Yeah. Yeah. Stupid cars.
Yeah, we really have a sickness. I think all of us do. It's kind of crazy. Yours may be worse than others, driving 40 hours to come race.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the very first drag week we did in 2013, like that should have convinced us to do no more. Like that's what should have happened.
Was it just pain?
Like we didn't get out of Alberta before we had to change a camshaft in my brother's Mustang. And like we're not even out of the province yet, and we're on the side of the road changing. We had to run back to Canadian Tire, which is just a little out of place, and to get a balancer puller so we could change the camshaft. And then we drive all the way to Bowling Green, Kentucky. We start the event. And I think day 2 or 3, my brother hits both walls in his Mustang.
Oh, gosh.
And, that bends the control arm. The one side of the car is completely smashed. And Tom Bailey talks about it too. It was like 114 degrees. It was a brutal year. I lost an airbag on the way down, so I was like riding dirty all the way down because they had nothing holding up the back of the car.
Bowling Green's a weird track like that. It gets hot there.
Oh yeah,
it gets really hot there, and the track surface gets crazy, unbearable to use. And so you're on your first one, and for you, it's actually funny because I was like, oh well, at least it's at the first track. Well, you drive your car there, so I guess any track is pretty much the same.
Yeah, it don't matter. You can't turn it up the last day because you think your truck and trailer are there when you know you got like 3,000 miles to drive home. So I made quite a few passes yesterday. I made 4 passes, which normally I won't do because history has taught me that it's like if you've finished the event and you've got your place, just take that and go home. Because if you break your shit, obviously you go from 0 to 0 pretty quick when it's like, all right, well, now we got to book some plane tickets or
saying. I always don't like the one more, like, one more pass. Like, this is the last one, like, because then you're going to end up hurting something.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets questionable.
Like one more run on the ski hill. I'm just going to make one more pass. Yeah.
And I appreciate that, you're on the shirt that you gave me. That's a cool feature that they added you to that. They even added the Canadian maple leaf and everything.
Oh, yeah. Tom Bailey and his crew. It was, the shirt was a kind of a funny deal. I didn't know Tom wanted to surprise me with it, calling me the People's Champ. I get a message that asking if I wanted to sell the shirt. And I'm like, I don't even know what shirt you're talking about. I didn't get any shirt made. I kind of might have saw that, the company who was making the shirt kind of released this quick little video. And so there's a bunch of controversy around the whole drag and drive piece.
Yeah, the phrasing on it.
Anyways, it all got sorted out in the end. I don't think there's too much.
There was like 2 weeks of drama, I would say.
Yeah.
Where they somebody tried to trademark the words drag and drive.
Yep.
That didn't go over well in our tight-knit drag and drive community.
Yeah.
Where everybody knows everyone.
And, Freiberger was the one that created it. Like, if anybody would have rights to something like that, it would be Freiberger, and he's not doing anything with it. So when somebody else tries to grab it and run with it, this community will eat you up.
That's interesting. Freiberger created that because I feel like he doesn't get credit, nor does he take credit.
Yeah.
Nor does anybody give him the credit he deserves if he actually did. I know that they started at Motor Trend and everything like that. And
Yeah.
But I never really get, I never really hear that Freiberger was like the guy.
Yeah, he, I think it was him, Keith Turk, and it was a few of them sitting around, and I can't remember what the road race competition is, but they're the ones that kind of started it, where it was like they road race, they pack their cars up, they drive to another road race, and they do that, and then Freiberger was the one that we should do that drag racing.
Yeah.
And he's definitely the one that, in my opinion, is the one that created it. Like, if I'm going to get anybody to sign my visor in my car, it's going to be Freiberger, because this whole drag and drive community wouldn't be what it is without those guys creating Drag Week originally.
I definitely think of him as like a drag and drive guy because he's the voice of, Drag Week. Like, he's always the announcer, and like he's kind of the voice of it for the last years and years and years. And then that's so cool. I mean, I didn't really even think about that because, I'm a little bit newer to the community as well. And I think a lot of people probably are because there's 50 events this year.
Yeah.
There's not enough.
I was telling people that if you think about what drag and drive has done for the motorsports industry and the amount of parts that are sold, and like it's amazing how many different events. I think they're talking like 4,000 cars competed last year. So you think about all the parts that are required to get all that to happen. I think it's, between even like, in my opinion, of course I'm a Pontiac guy, Justin, our big chief, doing Street Outlaws. Like, that kicked off this huge wave. And then now Drag and Drive is another one. And, it's pretty cool. Justin hit me up on my way home from the last one. He's like, he's like, I want to do what you're doing. Like, what class are you in? And he's a funny guy. And he's like, no, I ain't putting no stick car on my, I ain't dealing with all that shit.
No, he's like me. He just let off a button. I'm a simple person.
Yeah.
It seems fun and all, but then when I start thinking about slipper clutches and stuff, I'm like, I don't know. But you've helped develop the, you and
Bill Armstrong.
Billy, What's the whole story on that deal? I'd love to shout him out.
Yeah. Bill Armstrong created the Bang Shift Billy, and so I have an adjustable slipper clutch. And so what we tried to do is try to figure out how to do the same thing with a hydraulic clutch without having to get underneath your car. So every time I'm under my car adjusting my clutch, he's like, "You adjusting your app?" So what Bill created was basically a modulating box that goes on the hydraulic line to your clutch. And so you can set the bite point, so where you release your clutch and the clutch release the clutch pedal, where the clutch just starts to grab, that's kind of your bite point. And then there's a timer that you can slip the clutch. And it's very small movements. And so it took a lot of, it probably took us 3 years between the two of us and him working with some engineering firms to get that thing sorted out. But it works really well. So if you have a new Corvette or if you have anything with a hydraulic clutch.
And it just goes inline on the hydraulic side of things. And
literally an app on your phone.
That's super cool. And because it allows you to still run a factory style clutch with like actual diaphragm, not like one of these like weighted slipper clutches where they're all kinds of complex.
Yeah. Every track I have to jack my car up. I loosen the clutch way off for racing. And then before we get back on the street, I jack the car up and have to put bass in. And so Bill's always harassing me about having to do that.
And I saw he was at PRI showing it off this year, which was cool. It was cool to see him with a booth with a couple products because that's a fairly new business just in itself, doing all those kind of parts development on this stuff, which is...
Yeah, and you and I were talking about the my steering wheel and the cord. So he also developed something called the Billy button. So it's a wireless button for your steering wheel. So I think that's going to be a bigger hit than the clutch controller, just because it can be used for so many different...
Yeah, a lot more people have
And it's pretty slick. Like the whole time I'm like, man, I hate this cord on my steering wheel. I wish I knew. Oh yeah, I do know a guy. Yeah. So yeah, I'm like, Bill, we got to get me sorted out because that's a great one. So yeah, the Billy Button and the Bang Shift Billy are two amazing products that still working on all the details on the Billy Button, but he'll have it sorted out pretty quick. So
I feel like when Leroy first showed up at the drag and drive stuff, you two had that stick shift kind of between each other.
Yeah.
It was like, who's going to win this year type of thing, because you guys were both pretty comparable cars.
Yeah.
What car does he have? I know the car, I just don't know what it exactly is.
It's some Ford or something.
Yeah, something.
It's a Ford Fairlane.
Okay,
yeah.
It's a Fairlane. Yeah, you see, muscle car knowledge. No idea.
Yeah.
Do you consider a Fairlane a muscle car?
Yeah.
Does that qualify?
Well, I would say that to Bill, but yeah.
Yeah, if he's listening, it's not.
It was funny because when the first time I met Big Chief, I started talking and he's like, "Are you from Canada?" And it was at PR. He's like, "Are you from Canada?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You drive a 65 GTO?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh yeah, I've watched all your videos." He's like, "You travel around with some guy with like a Buick or something," and you know damn well he knew what the car was, but he was like cutting
the
down.
Pontiac guy in him had to jab at him a little bit.
Yeah. So Bill's car is a twin turbo small block Ford. He's got the same transmission as me. He uses the slipper clutch, or he uses his app for slipping his clutch and stuff. And
seen you guys rebuild the trans on video at his house on Rocky Mountain Race Week, in a bucket. I guess that's the way to rebuild a T56.
Multiple times, yes.
The bucket method.
The bucket method, yeah. The 5-gallon bucket does work pretty good.
It works for rotaries, actually, too. That's the same. They build it on a 5-gallon bucket as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because you stack stuff. It's kind of the same deal.
Very useful tool, those 5-gallon buckets.
You need like a nice long puller for a T56, though.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I carry it all with me. And, but yeah, once you've done them enough, you can figure it out. But you got to pull it off, pull the one bearing off, and it's just about a 2-foot pull. So
like a custom built puller just to get the trans apart.
Yeah. Yeah, so Bill's been, it was funny because that's been the joke on our podcast is he's been 870 and I've been 875. So he's always been ahead of me, but I've solved that problem. And I was joking before coming down here, it's like the sick week's the best because if I come down here and beat him, there's not another event for a long time.
And he's at altitude. So
he's at altitude.
Yeah, he's got to come down to sick week to try that.
I was gonna, I thought that was cool, and I think a lot of people don't realize that if you can make the same power at altitude like I can, because I'm only running like 17 pounds of boost. My car mile an hour's better in Colorado, and usually ET's better. It's because I can make the same power and the air is way thinner.
Yeah.
Like when you pull your chute in Colorado, it does not feel like it when you pull when I pull my chute down here. It's like I think I'm going 200 miles an hour because the air is so dense and grabs that chute, and it's like, holy crap.
Pulling it through humidity.
Yeah.
And then up there you have thin air, so the aerodynamics aren't really exactly the same.
It's totally true. Like, my brick is, it's a big flat front end and stuff. It just slices through the air in Colorado. But down here, even fuel economy, my fuel economy is actually worse down here because it's... you just got to push it through all this thick air.
Do you get different fuel in Canada than here, like pump?
Yeah, pretty much same.
Same. Yeah, I know some countries get like, 98 or something weird like that, but they use like different octane systems and stuff, all kinds of weird, complicated stuff once you start crossing. But you buy it in liters, which is all weird too.
Yeah.
I don't know. That wouldn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Buying fuel by the liter.
You're thinking, oh, this is cheap.
Yeah, what a deal.
It's not that cheap.
Not any cheaper.
Yeah.
Probably more expensive, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, ours is... we're paying over $1 a liter and 3.75 liters per gallon. So, we're paying,
We tried this pipeline for a little while, but it didn't pan out.
I passed a hybrid down here and it said no pipeline, and I tried to bump them off the road.
Yeah,
but,
just bump them into the ditch.
You bump them into the ditch a bit.
We were banking on that pipeline,
you and your Prius can
I was actually wondering. I was like, what is like the difficulty of coming in and out of Canada? Do they try to if you have any parts that you're bringing back in or new stuff, like do you have to claim anything? Like
Yeah, so
this T-shirt, if you ended up bringing it in, would they try to tax you on it?
Yeah, so the way it works, like if you're over, I think 3 days, you could bring $800 worth of stuff in, and there's no taxes or no duty. You still would have to pay taxes. But no, it's really no problem. Like, in fact, it's funny because there's this Nate is the guy's name, big tattooed Nate at the border. And if he's working the border when I'm coming into the U.S., I've literally seen him body check the person out of the way. So he can be like, he's like, this is the GTO from 1320 video. And he's
nice.
Freaking out like a teenage girl. It's just the best experience every time I go through. So
shout out to Nate for being helpful on the border.
Oh, yeah.
Is he on the U.S. side or the?
He's on the U.S. side.
Okay,
Yeah.
so he's an American guy.
Yeah. And then coming back through, I mean, what you really should do is you should come to the border. You should go to the Canadian side and go, listen, I'm bringing spare transmission, spare 9-inch, and kind of get an itemized list. Because when I go back through, if they really wanted to, like, look in my trailer and go, can you prove to me that you didn't buy that down there? I mean, I could probably find receipts and show them.
Yeah. But what about leaving stuff here too? Like.
Yeah, so far,
they
no.
don't care about that either.
Yeah, no, there hasn't really been any issues. And I think the border's got good enough stats on Rich Guido that they know once a year he's doing this event. And so typically, I mean, the guy questioned us quite a bit on the way down this time about, he's looking at my car and he's like, the roads are horrible, right?
You're going into Montana.
Yeah, he's like, it is glare ice. He's like, you got chains? And I'm like, nope, we're going. And the roads were fine. We weren't going on some of the passes he was thinking of. But no, that part of it's really not a problem.
I've heard it's where you come in is also part of it. Like you coming in by Montana is a lot different than like coming in New York area or something like that.
Yeah.
I've heard that can make it a little bit tougher.
I think they've got good enough stats on you, and the Border Patrol knows like your patterns almost. And obviously you never want to try to get caught going across the border with something you shouldn't, because they also track that, and then you're in for a world of hurt every time you cross. But
yeah,
so far I've had zero issues. It's usually good entertainment.
Check your fluids and stuff, cut the seat open, make sure you're not running anything.
If it goes bad, it could go really bad. But so far they've been great. I mean, the odd time they're like, you got to do a burnout. And it's like, oh man, my trunk's full. like I don't need to brake my car at the border.
That weighs 6,000 pounds right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Sure,
trailer burnouts when your car is like loaded like mine is, like the trunk is full, the trailer is full. It's like, I've emptied it out and did it on, that brand new fresh track in Vegas, or fresh road in Vegas. But
I didn't do any burnouts my last 2 years either, because my car was so loaded down with stuff that I was just like, I can't risk it, guys. No. I can't just it's got too many things in the trunk right now for me to trust doing a burnout. And it probably wouldn't even have done one good right there because it was so hooked up with weight.
Yeah. Well, and I got winter tires that I kind of need to get home. So it's like, I really don't want to burn these things off. But
yeah, I envy the trailer burnouts a little bit because I haven't experienced that yet.
Yeah,
I've done drag strip burnouts, which are pretty cool also.
Yeah. I'm good at the drag strip. Yeah. I'll do a burnout as long as you want.
Yeah. Kevin did one at like 1,000 feet. He was doing a burnout, it looked like.
Yeah. Oh, man. Right in front of Chad. Chad had a great view of it. Yeah.
I know. It was a good thing that Chad didn't have a better pass. He would have been right next to him.
Oh, yeah. He said he was on the brakes hard. And shout out to both those guys.
I find it so cool that you and your dad do this together. I mean, do you enjoy doing this with him? Is this just fun for you, or watching him do all this work, or you get in there too? You pull the trans?
Oh, it's been awesome. I look forward to it every year.
Yeah,
every trip.
It seems like you guys have a good time.
Every trip with Rich. 25.
All four events, yeah.
25,000 miles, and I like that you guys talk about miles to me because I'm an American here. I don't understand the kilometers talk. Doesn't compute well.
I've enjoyed every one. We went together in 2013 and have been doing it every year since. And the guys back home, they say, figure I'm crazy, but it's been awesome.
Can I ask, how old are you doing this?
Well, last year on the
Death Week.
Death Week, I turned 81. So
Wow. God bless, man. That's so freaking cool. That's like, I think anybody at that age is dreaming of doing stuff like that or talking about the heyday of when they did it. And your heyday is right now doing it.
Still, every year I say, well, maybe this is the last, but comes time, and if Rich is willing to have me along, I can't turn it down. I enjoy it so much.
Do you wrench on the car at all, or is that all Rich?
He did. So let me
tire changer and hold my seat out.
So you give him jobs.
Well, I think that's what you realize is like, yeah, he's on vacation, but he's fully able even at 81. He built a 30 by 50 shop all by himself like last year.
You Canadians, man, you're different.
And so if you bring him along and go, yeah, you just sit to the side, I don't need your help. It's way better when he's part of the team, and that's his job. He changes all 4 tires. He takes his own seat out of the car, and then has to reverse all of that at every track. So he's fully able, and he's a key part of the team too. So
I love it. I mean, at 81, I'm sure you've dealt with quite more difficulties than just changing wheels and tires. So
oh yeah, over the years, while I've been in the cars. Well, actually, I got my boys into it when they graduated. They bought them a collector type car and fixed them up together, and that got them going. And they haven't slowed down since. Both boys. And
seems like they've sped up a lot.
Yeah,
doing that. So it's awesome.
That's so cool, man. I mean, that's the dream right there is father-son team. You know, some people think about it as like 25, 30-year-olds doing a father-son team, but to hear it at 81 is like, that's unreal. That's so cool.
Definitely keeps you young.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, man, I know you said you had a podcast. I'd love to promote it. You and Billy.
Yeah.
You and Bang Shift Billy.
Yeah, and Travis. It's called Clutch Burners Podcast. So we talk a lot about stick car racing on there. You know, I'm sure we're going to branch out a little bit more, but we've had, we've had Garrett on there. We've had Jonathan Atkins on there.
The legend.
The legend. Yeah, Ben Strader. Pretty much all. Nick Coleman. I mean, we've had Miles Kerr was great. So we're not just domestic, imports. We've had Brent and Jamie on there too. So yeah, selfishly, it's for us, it was like, let's see what else we can learn. And all the guys on there, all the stick guys, I guess we're all crazy because we're all telling all of our secrets. So we have a ton of fun. I think we got like 25 podcasts on there now too. So
yeah, it's a great catalog of people and knowledge on that podcast from what I've listened to and seen. It's a cool like kind of. It's the same that I think about with this. I get to like document these things and put them out forever, and that's kind of the same that you guys are doing. These like stories that we'll probably forget because you don't think about it until somebody asks you about it, and then you're like, oh yeah, I did have to change the trans 6 times that one event.
Yeah. I was, I had forgot about this story, but it's a funny one, so I got to tell it.
Yeah.
And I was having some issues on, I think it was Drag Week, and it was like 2014 or 2015. And I thought I got bad fuel. And I just filled up. So I'm thinking, we got to get rid of all this fuel. So we went to a car dealership, and we literally were draining fuel out of my car and filling up all of these cars on this dealership with all this gas that we thought was, we might have thought was bad gas.
What do you hold, like 12 gallons?
Yeah, it was like 15 gallons.
Wow.
So I'm sure they're thinking, why are our cars all full all of a sudden? And anyways, it wasn't
Canadian thing to do.
It was premium, and it wasn't bad gas. Unfortunately, it was a different problem. But I still laugh at that one. We were laughing our asses off as we're filling up these cars in this dealership. I think we checked for cameras, but anyways, it was pretty funny because. I don't know what they would have been thinking.
This Canadian guy snuck into our dealership and filled up all of our cars.
It's like, yeah.
And then drove away in the middle of the night. It's the darndest thing.
Yeah.
Next time you need to do that, just come on by.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
that's
so many
good.
memories. So to your point, yeah, there's so many memories that are easy to forget that it's good to document them.
yeah, there's just that endless trove of 7 days of lack of sleep. You start to make some stories.
Yeah,
It
totally
grows
do. Yeah.
quickly. But dude, man, where can people find you at? I know you got the podcast, but where can they follow you personally? How would you like them to if they can?
Yeah, it's Richard Guido on Facebook, Guido Rich on Instagram, and then Black Sheep Guido is on YouTube. And I haven't done a lot on there yet. There's some cool oil videos on there right now that I just did. But
Oh yeah, I did see those.
I'll probably start doing a little bit more on there too. But that's pretty much where they can.
Well, I'll put everything in the description, man. Thanks for coming on. I know you got a long drive home, so.
Really appreciate. I'm a big fan, so really appreciate you having me on and taking the time with me. So
Yeah, dude.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next time.